For years, they had been complaining about their adult children. Meet Harry and Ruth, Ishmael and Wanda. Every Saturday, like clockwork, these two couples would find themselves at their favorite coffee shop, sipping on their preferred brews and indulging in their weekly ritual. A ritual that involved a lot of chatter, laughter, and yes, a fair share of grumbling about their grown-up kids. Between sips of cappuccinos and bites of pastries, they'd share tales of their offspring's latest antics. The missed calls, the forgotten birthdays, the challenging career choices, all served with a side of light-hearted banter and a sprinkle of exasperation. But as the weeks turned into months, and the months into years, one of them, Ruth, found herself growing increasingly uncomfortable with this constant cycle of critique and complaint. She loved these gatherings, cherished her friends, and adored her children. But this incessant focus on their faults, it didn't sit right. So, on this Saturday, Ruth decided to voice her concern. Ruth broke the usual rhythm of their conversation, suggesting a change. She proposed a shift in tone, a departure from the worn path of criticism towards their adult children. She appealed for understanding, compassion, and a chance to mend their strained relationships. "Let's change our words, our judgments," she implored. But her request was met with resistance. Harry, Ishmael, and Wanda enjoyed their weekly ritual of airing grievances, reveling in the camaraderie born from shared frustrations. Ruth's suggestion was a disruption, a ripple in the comfortable waters of their routine. Disheartened by their objection, Ruth rose from her chair, her silence speaking louder than any words. With a sigh, she made her way to the door, leaving behind the familiar chatter of the coffee shop. That night, in the quiet of their home, Harry turned to Ruth, a question hanging in the air. "Why did you leave?" he asked, his voice echoing in the stillness. Ruth, finally standing up for her beliefs, had a heart-to-heart with Harry. In the quiet of their home, Ruth voiced her concerns. She spoke of the years filled with critical comments, the constant diatribes against their children. Her voice, soft yet firm, echoed in the room. "Harry," she said, "the path of gossip and judgment we tread on needs to change. We need to practice acceptance and love." Harry, a man set in his ways, was taken aback. His usual jovial demeanor shifted into a stubborn reluctance. "I'm too old to change, Ruth," he murmured, but Ruth stood her ground. "I can't continue this way, Harry. It's time for a new approach. Please join me in this change." But Harry's resistance held strong. A sadness crept into Ruth's eyes as she turned out the light, her decision made. The next day, Ruth packed her bag and left. A week later, the coffee shop felt different without Ruth. It was as if her spirit, her laughter, and her words had seeped into the very essence of the place. The humdrum of the cafe, the clinking of coffee cups, and the light chatter among patrons felt hollow, void of the warmth Ruth brought. Harry, Ishmael, and Wanda sat in their usual corner, their conversations muted, their smiles forced. The absence of Ruth's vivacious presence was palpable. It was Ishmael who first broke the silence. "She's right, you know," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. The others looked at him, startled. "We've been encouraging an absence of grace and empathy towards our own children. It's not right." His words hung in the air, their truth resonating with every tick of the coffee shop's old wall clock. They had indulged in a weekly ritual of criticizing their children, ignoring their own faults, and forgetting the love that bound them as parents. Harry, who had been quiet till now, looked up. His eyes, usually twinkling with mischief, were now clouded with thought. His gaze fell on Ruth's empty chair, and a sigh escaped his lips. "Let's go get her, Harry," Ishmael urged. Harry looked at his friend, then at Wanda, who nodded in silent agreement. The thought of Ruth alone, away from them, tugged at his heartstrings. He had initially resisted the change, claiming he was too old, but now the thought of losing Ruth seemed a far greater fear than changing his ways. With newfound resolve, Harry rose from his chair. His lips, which rarely parted for a smile, now beamed with hope. His friends watched as he walked out of the coffee shop, towards his car. "I'm going to get Ruth," he declared, his voice filled with determination. He had finally understood the value of acceptance and love, and it was time to bring Ruth back. With newfound hope, Harry set out to get Ruth back. It was a journey not just across town, but towards a new beginning, a journey towards love, acceptance, and a better relationship with their children.